Hello, it's Amlee, your everyday light worker, talking about sexual harassment. So, this is the sexual harassment series, and this is going to be part three, where we are going to be talking about the different types of sexual harassment. So, there are several different types of sexual harassment. Let's get into it. We already discussed quid pro quo and hostile work environment sexual harassment. Now, with quid pro quo, you have a situation where an employer suggests to an employee that they're going to receive a promotion or some kind of employment benefits in exchange for engaging in sexual activity with the employer. And what is meant by employer is a manager, a supervisor, someone in a position of power at your place of employment. That is called quid pro quo sexual harassment. It is against the law. You should not be getting involved in these kinds of deals. But if you are, you do have remedy. You can get out of it by keeping documentation of the request, what you've done for what promises, documentation, evidence, getting your evidence together. That is key in any sexual harassment case. Now, let's move on to hostile work environment harassment. In a workplace, offensive and sexually explicit jokes and comments that are made on a regular basis that create an uncomfortable or intimidating hostile environment for employees is called hostile environment harassment. So we discussed that in the other video too, that there's comments that are making people uncomfortable, that are inappropriate, that it keeps on happening, and it's pervasive. That creates what is known as hostile work environment sexual harassment. So there's verbal harassment. So hostile work environment usually consists of verbal harassment. That's where a coworker continuously makes unwelcome sexual comments, lewd jokes, or innuendos. They're directed at another colleague, and it causes distress or discomfort. It probably causes the most distress to the person that is the recipient of the commentary, but it can also cause distress to people who are just watching the commentary. Even worse, you can have physical harassment, and that is where an individual in the workplace inappropriately touches a colleague without their consent, grabs them, fondles them. All of these things constitute physical harassment, and that is severe. So if someone is doing that, you definitely want to make a note of that. Definitely tell them that it's inappropriate, that it needs to stop, that you will report it if it does not stop, and write down explicitly what happened, when it happened. All these things are important with regard to collecting your evidence to prove that you have been a victim of harassment. There's visual harassment. And that's when an employee decorates their workplace with sexually explicit posters or displays or graphic sexual images. Again, this creates a hostile work environment because everybody doesn't want to be subjected to that when they are just trying to do their work. You know, people are trying to do their work. They're not trying to look at pornography or be exposed to that. So that type of sexual harassment is also a type of sexual harassment. And keep in mind that it doesn't have to be just one or the other. Usually people are experiencing a combination of these. There's cyber harassment. That is sending explicit, unwanted sexual messages or images or videos to a colleague's personal or work email or through social media platforms. So cyber harassment is, of course, on the uptick because we have all of these social media platforms that we use to communicate with now. So when someone is sending you messages that are sexually explicit or videos or whatever, if it's being sent through electronic means, that is considered cyber harassment. You also have retaliation harassment. So that's where an employee reports an incident of sexual harassment to their supervisor or to human resources, and in response, they're facing negative consequences such as demotion, reduced hours, reduced work, or being terminated. That is retaliation. Um, Gender based harassment is when someone is making derogatory comments about a person's gender or their gender identity or their sexual orientation. And it doesn't matter if this is sexually explicit or not, it is considered a form of sexual harassment. Constructive discharge is where an employer creates such a hostile working environment that the employee feels like they have to resign. They can't continue working in the work environment. They don't feel safe. They are just being exposed to so much harassment. It's causing them certain kinds of emotional distress. Therefore, they have to resign. That is called constructive discharge. So if you were to, for example, apply for unemployment because of the situation, you would say, I was constructively discharged. I didn't resign. I had to leave because the situation was so unbearable. Finally, and this is rare, but it does happen, there's third-party harassment, where a customer or client of a business engages in sexually harassing behavior that is directed at an employee of the business, and the employer fails to address the situation adequately. So think of like a waitress who's being touched or fondled by the customers. It is the management of that restaurant. The management there is supposed to deal with that and make sure that their wait staff is not being harassed in that instance. So there you have it. There are several different types of sexual harassment, and people are usually subjected to a combination of types, but keep in mind that it all constitutes harassment. It's all illegal, and that if you're experiencing any one or more of these, you should make note of it and you should be prepared to report it, because usually, unfortunately, this type of stuff doesn't get better. It gets worse and worse and worse until the person is constructively discharged, until they can't take it anymore and they have to resign. So keep all of that in mind. Keep all of your documentation about it together. It's very important to document, because if not, it's just a he said, she said situation. So it's important to document. It's important to be credible. You don't lie or exaggerate about what you're experiencing, but do document it so that when you do decide to report it, you will have your evidence together and you will be therefore credible, and hopefully the employer will do something to cease the harassment. Like I said, a lot of places of employment just don't know what to do about this, and so they don't do anything, unfortunately. So the more prepared you are to defend yourself, the better off the situation is going to proceed for you. Hope this helps. Emily, your everyday light worker, on series 3 of sexual harassment. Bye-bye. See you later.